Hello everybody, welcome back, and today I wanted to expand on a little point that I made a couple days ago when we talked about my predictions for an upcoming PlayStation showcase. Hopefully that will still happen soon. And one of my predictions was that Resident Evil 9 will get shown off and possibly a VR mode will be announced. And I kind of left it at that in the video. But today I wanted to take the time to talk about it a bit more in depth, go over some of the leaks, and I will point out when the leaks are starting and ending so that if you want to miss all that and you don't want any potential setting spoilers or character spoilers, you can skip over that, and then we'll talk about the possibility of it coming to PSVR2 after that and how realistic that really is, whether it'll come later or on launch day. And there will be some kind of mixing in terms of certain spoilers for gameplay elements concerning the map, and that's the only thing that I'll talk about in the PSVR2 section. So if you want to avoid spoilers completely, skip to this time code on screen now. But I do want to make it clear that these aren't massive spoilers or anything, they're just little inklings of information that we've gotten over the last couple of months that could or could not be true. However, I just want to point out over the last couple of weeks, we've been trying to get to 10,000 subs. I've been pushing it a little bit more than usual on the channel because I never really advocate for people subbing, but there's been quite a big increase since I've said that only 20% of you-ish are subscribed to the channel. And if you do enjoy the content, feel free to sub because it is free. And if you want to unsub later, it's free to do that as well. So you're not losing anything by subbing to the channel. You're just kind of getting notified, or me showing up a bit more frequently if you do enjoy the content. But I completely understand if not. Anyway, let's go on to the content of the video. Now, Resident Evil 9 is apparently the highest budget Resident Evil game ever. According to the leaks that we got over the last month or so, it started development back at the start of Resident Evil 8's development as well, and they were kind of developed side by side, and since Resi 8 came out, they've been working on it further, and it's set to be one of the biggest Resident Evil games ever, and kind of switching up the formula a little bit, introducing, weirdly, an open world. We never really see that in Resi games. I got introduced to the franchise through Resi 7, and since then I've become familiar with 4, 8, 1, and 2. So I'm looking forward to the future of the series, but it's weird seeing that potentially, from quite credible leakers, we're going to go open world for Resi 9. Now, back in 2022, there was a leak that the game's working title was Resident Evil Apocalypse, taking place in North America, where you've got loads of caves, forests, and rivers. I'm kind of picturing something like The Forest, that video game here, and that kind of fits the open world MO, and it would include things like Wendigos and voice mimicking creatures that would absolutely be terrifying in VR, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here, because we're not quite there at the VR discussion yet. Now, apparently Capcom could be viewing this as kind of the end to the series of events that built up in the last Resi games, because Resident Evil 9 internally, according to leakers, is being looked at as the start of a new chapter and the end of an old one. So one leak that was thrown around is that we could be playing as Chris, who we saw in Resi 8. That would be quite cool. His level was really, really engaging. I love that one. But could also see the return of a couple of older characters that, to be honest, there's no point in mentioning because I don't want to spoil them for you if you are listening out to this video and are a little bit wary of spoilers and don't want to hear anything too in-depth. There's no point in me touching on it, but legacy characters could be involved, which is exciting, but Chris would be our focus, it seems. It is worth mentioning, though, that that leaker said that Resident Evil 9 would be announced in 2023 and would come out in 2024, so they were way off the mark with that. We're now looking potentially at a 2025 release being announced at the PlayStation Showcase, potentially, because apparently the reveal is very, very soon. Now, Dusk Golem came out in October of last year saying that this was the longest development cycle of any Resi game, and again is being looked at as sort of the conclusion to the past events in the other games and also the beginning of a new chapter in the franchise, because Resident Evil is one of Capcom's biggest moneymakers. They'd be stupid to end it for good, but it's interesting to see that they're putting a lot of budget into this and a lot of time and manpower, and hopefully they'll pull it off. The leaker Dusk Golem was also the one who came out a couple of weeks ago saying that the game could be going to an open world format, as we discussed earlier. They corroborate this by saying Capcom develop their games basically 3 at a time to ensure that the engine that they're using, the RE engine in this case, is used most efficiently. So Resident Evil 9, Monster Hunter Wilds, and Dragon's Dogma 2 all apparently use this iteration of the RE engine, which they built upon to make kind of open world capable apparently with the other 2 games, which does make sense if this is the way they develop their games. Now that's where the information kind of ends, and the only 2 pieces of information that I think are relevant to PSVR 2 in terms of how the game will play and if it will even be ported are the character we're playing as, who I won't mention from here on out because we don't want to talk about spoilers, but if you're aware of who they are, it will make sense. And also the fact that this game could be going open world. Now, let's tackle the first one first. Simply put, the character we're playing as would probably lean into a more action-oriented game rather than horror, although with some of the setting stuff we discussed before and the potential enemies, I could see that being really creepy as well, so who knows. But yeah, it could be a more action-oriented game, depending on who we're playing as here, as we discussed earlier. Now, the main thing though for PSVR 2 is how the hell would an open world game run on PSVR 2? Now, we saw high fidelity games, Resi 8, Resi 4, Horizon Call the Mountain, GT7, they all run pretty greatly on PSVR 2 with reprojection, of course, but we did see some leaps and bounds being made between Resi 8 and Resi 4 Remake in terms of reprojection and shimmering between the two games, because Resi 4 came out quite a while, about a year after Resi 8 did-ish, maybe like 9 months. And already then we saw improvements in shimmering, in reflections, and in frame rate. I'm fairly sure there is a subtle difference between the reprojection in 8 and 4 Remake that makes me hopeful that they could get an open world running in Resi 9 if that is the case. It's going to be a big task. I think this will be the first ever AAA open world VR game, if that's true. Now, the recent Resi games aren't too unfamiliar with semi-open world stuff. I would count Resi 8 and bits of Resi 4 of having quite open areas. You know, you can backtrack, you can go around, but that's not really true open world. If we're looking at true open world here, it's going to take a lot of power to get that working on PSVR 2. But I think with dynamic foveated rendering and, say, the PS5 Pro coming out at the end of this year, I believe, potentially you could get some really nice visuals on the upgraded console, but it could also run on the PS5 as well. Maybe PS5 Pro would have no reprojection, and potentially Resi 9 could be one of the first games to kind of market that as a PS5 Pro PSVR 2 feature. That is if Sony really want to put the time in to upgrade games on PSVR 2 for the PS5 Pro. We don't know if they're that committed to it or not, we'll just have to wait and see. But it is an exciting prospect. In conclusion though, my final bet would be that Resi 9 will be coming to PSVR 2. If we see the announcement of it at the showcase, I would say so if it is going to be ported. I'm not sure if we would see it at the release of the game on release day. I hope we would, considering how long this thing's been in development. But if it's been developed alongside Resi 8, as we've seen, and alongside Resi 4 Remake, as we've apparently been told, those two games were using the same engine, put on PSVR 2 to great effect, so I see no reason, apart from maybe that open world design element, that would stop it from being ported to PSVR 2 in terms of Resident Evil 9. It's one of the big hitters on the headset, and to have 3 knockout Resi games on PSVR 2 would be absolutely incredible, so I hope we do get it. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you to our patrons, Luke Bentley, Phil Irving, Hazit Moser, Ace Gamer, and Hippie Pickle, and thank you to our YouTube member, Jin007, a license to chill. If you want to join the Patreon or YouTube membership, the links are all in the description, along with the Discord if you want to come and yell at me about anything VR related. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.